What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Kind of Funny podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Greg Miller, alongside the producer/seducer, Nick Scarpino.
Welcome back to Northern California, Greg.
Thank you. We'll talk about that in a sec. He, of course, is Forbes 30 under 30, a.k.a. the second best baby blues in San Francisco, a.k.a. the verified one at Tim Gettys.
Let Tim host.
And then, of course, the Hispanic heartthrob.
You just go with the short one,
Street.
Greg. You can go with the short intro.
I'm already in the middle of it. Now you took it's
Go ahead.
Andy, everybody. Andy's here too.
Hey, I'm Andy. Good to see
But
you,
most
everybody.
importantly, this is your guest episode of the Kind of Funny podcast, and we have the incomparable Billy West. Hello, Billy.
Hey, how you guys doing?
We're good. How are you?
Or as they say
Famed
on
storied
YouTube.
voice actor.
No, or as they say on YouTube, hey guys.
Hey, how are you? And then you got to do a deep sigh, and then we do the cold intro and
Yeah,
everything.
I'm an
goes
influencer. Hey guys.
in.
Hey guys. You
I
know
like
what?
the-
I spliced together 1,000 different podcasts and influencer videos, and he's like, hey guys, hey guys, hey guys, hey guys.
See, we get the opposite. We start everything with "What's up, everybody," which became
That's good.
sort of the battle cry of all of the video game and entertainment industry from our perspective. So you can cut a montage of all of us saying, "What's up, everybody? What's up, everybody? What's up, everybody?"
Oh,
And
that's good.
it's just
I always
there.
went with hello sickies.
That's the new one. We're stealing
That's the
that.
one.
We're
That's
stealing
We're
that.
calling the audience
I
sickies
like
from here on out.
Sickies.
There you go.
Of course, if people don't know you, Billy, I would waste our entire time with you reading through your IMDb page. But I think most people jump to Fry from Futurama, maybe Stimpy from Ren and Stimpy, and then, of
Definitely.
course, Bugs Bunny from Space Jam.
And Doug, guys.
Oh, and Doug,
Doug,
yeah.
funny. Come on.
Nickelodeon. Yeah, you know what? It's 25 years later. So I had this-
25 years since Space Jam.
Well, yeah, and Doug and Ren and Stimpy. So I had this thought: if they ever brought back Doug, it's 25 years later, and I had a theory that sometimes people don't turn out like you think they're gonna. You know, like Doug would be like, "Dear Journal, today I blew up a courthouse."
So Doug is a domestic terrorist.
And
is
then
what you say.
Roger's a federal judge, and Doug. Oh, look who it is, loser! I always knew you were a loser. You blew up a courthouse. Tell me you did it. Tell me you did it. You got loser written all over your face. It's even spelled wrong. You're going to jail for 1,000 years, funny.
I didn't know Billy West was also Roger. Oh my God.
Well, also, Greg, you said Stimpy, but it's also Ren.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep it short, people. We could do this all day.
We have 30 minutes.
So what does that feel like, Billy? I mean, because it's 25 years later, you say, as if that was like the one thing you did. I did Doug and I did Bugs Bunny and I hung it up. You were still working nonstop or whatever. Like, do you have ever a moment to stop and think about this?
I do, but you know what I have to tell you honestly is it's always been surreal to me. You know, just
Sure.
You don't like if you're doing, you don't have any idea whether you're doing a cultural phenomenal show or not. You know,
Right.
you have no idea when you're in the middle of something. It could be a flop. You don't know how it's going to be perceived. So I've always been really, really pleasantly surprised at how people react to stuff that I've been involved with. I just, I'm lucky, you know.
Sure.
Based on that, on the IMDb, like there may have been roles you got before, maybe commercials or something, but it seems like Ren and Stimpy was kind of the first big thing you got. Was there any doubt leading before Ren and Stimpy? Was there any doubt, should I even be trying to do this as a career?
I was working in radio. I started, well, actually, let me start at the beginning. As I was a musician, I was a professional musician, and
Banging on a trash can.
they took away
Very
my,
good.
they took away my spandex license in 1978. So I had to figure out something to do. And I started going to these comedy clubs, and nobody told me you had to have an act. I just used to pull, stuff out of my rear end and throw it against
You can
the
say
wall.
shit. It's okay.
Yeah, can I?
Yeah.
Oh,
you're
you
fine.
can
You can
curse
swear.
it up, Billy. Get in here.
Yeah, we're fine.
You don't even
Yeah,
want to
I'm
know the things Rob Paulson have said on this show.
We already bombed the courthouse, so yeah.
Right. So I know it's pretty subversive, but no, I started going to comedy clubs, and I would go up there, and if you're just spouting off like in Robin Williams type style, it could go either way. You could be exalted one night and then go to hell in a twisted metal fireball the next night,
Yeah.
You can't replicate the emotional resonance from one crowd to another. So I just I started doing radio, and I was in radio in Boston on WBCN FM. It doesn't exist in the way it used to. I forget what kind of a station it is now, but I mean, it was alternative before there was like alternative. You know, it started off as a hippie station, and it had quite a legacy. And then, you know, I found myself involved with them because where else can you go if you want to be a voice person? You know, you got to see what local radio is doing, and if they need any, you know, voice people or writers, or, you know, it's the way it was for me.
Sure.
What I always found really crazy is like we've had cartoons forever, and the 80s was kind of the dawn of the Saturday morning cartoon and Ninja Turtles, Transformers, all that stuff. But the rise of the Nicktoon, like in the early 90s, especially the original three of Rugrats, Ren and Stimpy, and Doug, you are a good percentage of the voices of the characters I just named. Like what was a Nicktoon compared to a cartoon, and how were you involved in 2 out of 3 of the the only Nicktoons at the time?
That was kind of serendipitous. I mean, none of these people knew the others, you know what I mean? It was all separate entities, and they were creator driven shows. Well, what happened was I left Boston and I went to New York to do commercials and also radio. I was on the Howard Stern show for a bunch of years, not a bunch of years, maybe like 5 years. And
okay, that counts as a bunch.
Hey, Robin,
Yeah, 5 years. 5 years in the Howard Stern show is probably like 20 years on any other show.
I was gonna say, I realize he's been on for like 90 now or whatever, but I still think 5 counts as a bunch.
Yeah. Why don't you saw me in half and count the rings?
That's a good Howard Stern, bro.
Yeah. Hey Robin, I just farted.
We got to work on that one, Nick. That's good.
Well, that was the idiot's guide to the show. I mean,
Totally.
I did a lot of stuff on that show, but when I left, I had already started auditioning for Nicktoons because they were going to have a 3 cartoon Sunday morning cartoon block. They wanted to do everything that the networks weren't doing. You know, like Jerry Laybourne was at Nick, and she was visionary, and she had couple of ladies, Vanessa Coffey and Mary Harrington, and they found Ren and Stimpy, and then, you know, they greenlighted Doug, and I found myself doing 2 Nicktoons. And with Ren and Stimpy, I knew John Crispolucci from 1988 because I did 5 episodes of a cartoon called Beanie and Cecil. Not the old one. That's what I grew up with.
You're not that old.
I am that old. Don't kid yourself. I'm 70. I had to get my retirement. I'm not going to let these bums in Congress steal it.
Exactly.
I worked my ass off since I'm 16 years old in the Boston Naval Shipyard. I'm getting my retirement. God damn it. Yeah. So anyway, these Nicktoons, you know, John Kay called me because I used to do this Larry Fine impression from the Three Stooges. I mean, I love the Stooges. I stopped going to church when I discovered the Stooges, you know, I just kind of found it. I really did, you know, and so I hated school. I'm on the autism spectrum. So school was just like, it made me sick just to think about walking to school. So it was murder, and I had OCD and ADHD, all stuff that there were no names for years ago, and now they got it. But I mean, I processed everything upside down backwards, and the only things that made sense to me were things that were audio, like watching cartoons. You know, grew up in Detroit, and I used to watch TV from Canada, Channel 9, and they showed Looney Tunes, and it was a film of a film of a film. Nobody had any clean prints of cartoons in those days. You know what I mean? It's the early 60s. So you're watching basically protons, but you can hear, you know, ain't I a little stinker? You know, so I listened to all that stuff, and it stuck with me. You know, and the more I found out about cartoons, the more I watched and heard more voices, and I was blown away by that stuff. I always was since I was a little kid, because I ran around Touretting out voices and making noises. And everybody was like, "Can you not do that?" And,
Please stop, sir.
yeah, it was horrible. I barely got out of school. but anyway, with Ren and Stimpy, is I auditioned for both parts, and John Kay wanted me to do both parts. So this is like right out of the movies. We went to Times Square where MTV is, and we went up to the MTV offices, and we were in a closet up the hall from Kurt Loder's office, setting up a mop on a pail with a microphone attached to it, and I'm all scrunched in with scripts, like this.
Yeah. Reading
and audition, this was going to go in. There was a meeting in like 20 minutes. We're women from Nickelodeon, and I'm doing it. And John Kay said, all right. So he goes in to meet with the women, and he came out a while later and he said, congratulations, what you did helped sell the show. But he decided he was going to do the Ren voice. And I really didn't give a fat frog's ass, because I had a gig. I was happy.
Right. You're just happy to have that one of the voices.
Happy to have it. Yeah. I'm a journeyman.
Happy, joy. Yeah.
I'm a journeyman. So we got it going, and I was doing Stimpy, and I was doing a few other voices, and then after the second season, John got himself in he got himself in a pickle with Nickelodeon over delivery of episodes, and all that kind of crap. And they dispatched him, and they went back to me. They said, weren't you supposed to do both voices? And I said, yeah. I wasn't his partner. I was a hired gun. So I loved it how everybody used to attack me. You backstabber. Yeah. Well, he turned out to be an interesting guy.
You got the last laugh.
I'm loving how like the sharp edge that Billy's got on him these days. This is good. I like it.
No, I used to say those cartoons were cries for help.
Yeah.
Was I wrong?
No, you were right. It sounds like you were right.
But I was part of it, and and I loved doing it. It was crazy. It was screaming, and I had never done stuff like that before. So I used to lose my voice, but
yeah. I remember seeing Ren and Stimpy for the first time and thinking like, this is just something so different than anything that's been put on TV before. And I distinctly remember watching it because I was like, the first couple episodes that were on, I wasn't a smart child, Billy. So I didn't understand that you could like figure out when a TV show was supposed to be on or a show, so I would just like catch stuff in the wild and be like, wow, what a coincidence. I happen to be watching TV at this time when they program TV for children. This is a stupid idiot. But I remember my mom coming in and seeing it and going, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, right.
When like Ren's pulling his eyeballs back, and I'm like, I don't know what it is, but it's genius.
Oh, it was so expressive and filmically beautiful, and the animation was incredible. And we had great voice people that I'd worked with, a few others, but what, you're funny talking about TV. I grew up in the 50s, so when I watched television, you could see the coolest thing you ever saw in your life, and you knew in 10 seconds it was going to be gone forever. You'd never see it again. Mm-hmm. There was no way you could know about showbiz. No way you could know. And so what you did was you sucked it up as emotionally and sponge-like as you could and try to replicate it so you could keep reliving something cool. And that's what guys like me did. It came from desperation.
So you're talking about soaking that stuff in and, getting Looney Tunes from Canada. When you're watching Looney Tunes, are you trying to mimic the voices then? Is that when you're discovering you have this talent?
Not consciously, I didn't. I just knew that I loved it, and I felt like I wanted to be close to it. I came from a hell house. My dad was a psycho, and it was out of survival that I would go off and my head would be filled with personas and characters, and I was like president of my own little world, and it was just like I used to do weird things when I was a kid. I used to hold a naval mirror that my dad had from World War II underneath one eye and walk up and down the halls like I was stepping over lights that appeared to be coming up from the floor. Meanwhile, they were hanging overhead. And it felt like I was walking on the ceiling. And I said, I could live here,
Sure.
It was like virtual reality, but what it was the prologue to a drug-fueled and the 20 years on, 20 to like, I don't know, 30 something, playing rock and roll music and, being crazy. But, I used to do the cartoon voices, like when I was playing, sort of Fry voice. It was a 25-year-old version of me. And I remember what I sounded like. And I said, I'm going to use this voice. I've never done that before. And so it was just like, oh man, I broke a string. Now what the fuck am I going to do? I don't have any more strings. Oh man, an amplifier blew up. I was whiny, nasally, and complainy, and perfect for Fry.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
So going back to Ren and Stimpy for a second,
Yes.
if you're recording both their voices, I know cartoons record in a bunch of different ways for voice acting, but
Yes.
how hard did you ever record both voices as if you're like
Having a
just reading the
conversation.
lines back and forth, having a conversation with yourself?
We didn't do it that way on that show. I'd go through the script as one character and then as another character. And then if there were incidentals, you'd go through it 3 or 4 times. And then they would mix and match. And they'd take the takes they wanted and everything. But Futurama, I was talking in real time, switching characters. If there was 2 pages of dialogue with just my characters on it, I'd be talking to myself for 3-4 pages, which I was suited to do. I mean, I was, I can't do anything else. I don't know how to do anything.
That's super cool. I mean, do you prefer, I imagine you probably have a home studio now at this point. We were talking about how horrible LA traffic is. And I can't imagine if you're doing a lot of voiceover work, you wouldn't want to just do that from the comfort of your own home. But is there ever opportunities you get where there are more than, a few cast members where you guys can riff off of each other and that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's getting more and more like that because say Katie Seagal, she's never not been a star. One day it dawned on me, and I'm sitting next to her and I look over and I go, Katie, you have never not been a star.
Yeah, she's been huge since Married with Children. Yeah.
Yeah. And she's always like on top of the world because she's that good. And I have respect for her in another way, is that she's an incredible musician. She sings like,
Really?
Yeah, I wish that I could have played with her. Maybe we'll get a chance someday.
I was gonna say it's never too late.
Yeah, maybe we'll get a chance. But she's amazing, and so were all the people that I worked with. I hold my colleagues in the highest of esteem. Believe me.
Oh, I'm sure you do. Yeah, you have to, right? With the roster you've worked with, let alone on just Futurama. And that leads me to my next point. I need to apologize publicly. Billy, I had a former roommate named Lucy James. She works at GameSpot. It's a video game website. And she is legitimately the biggest Futurama fan I've ever met. And I forgot to tell her I was interviewing you. And so when I just did it, she immediately joined the call. Hello, Lucy James. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. I will say that he invited me to the call. I did not just hack my way in here.
Again, when we used to do when we worked in this, we were to COVID roommates, Billy. So she used to just wander in on shows all the time. So this is very on par for what we do.
Okay.
Lucy, you have the floor to talk to Billy. I'm reading here. You say you were an official member of his forums at one point.
I was, and yeah, years ago.
I remember you.
So, Miss James, all the way from the UK, what would you like to ask or say to Mr. West here?
Oh man, I don't know. I mean, just to say, really, thank you for no, don't do this to me. Thank you for all of the hours of just I don't know what I would have done without Futurama. It is one of my favorite shows. I quote it on the daily, and obviously due to COVID, I have been wearing my pajamas pretty much the entire time. So I've managed to get so much usage out of the phrase, but I am already in my pajamas. So
man, I appreciate that. That means a lot to me that you liked it and that it got you through a few rough spots. I've met a lot of people. I was at a convention and these servicemen came up. They were in the Air Force and they were, in their late 20s maybe, and they had been flying missions over Afghanistan, and they came up to get autographs from me, and they told me that when they were flying over Afghanistan, they were doing lines from Futurama and the jet fighters.
That's wild.
It's shut up and take my money. I don't live on this planet anymore. No, seriously.
Yeah,
And I couldn't believe it. I mean,
that's incredible.
It's on a million levels. So I thank you for the compliment.
I think too that speaks to something you said earlier, right? When you're doing these shows, you don't know that you're going to have this cultural impact. You don't know that you're going to be part of people's lives this way.
No.
When did you realize that like something you were doing was resonating that way?
All I know is I used to come home hoarse after I was in California recording because I was like, hey, Ren, will you button me? You shut up, you fool! Yes, I shall tell you, you idiot. And I'd be like, I sounded like Bill Clinton used to sound. All those pubic hairs caught in his throat. My fellow Americans. So anyway, me and my wife walked uptown. I lived in the ass end of Chinatown, and we walked uptown a little bit to a restaurant called Telephone. And there were lines going out the door, and it was only like 11 a.m. And I said, I wonder what the hell is they must be giving away free drinks or something. And I peeked in and I said, what's going on? And somebody said to me, we're having a Ren and Stimpy listening party, watching party. And I was like, really? Because I had no idea. And they were like drinking Bloody Marys, and they were screaming at the TV and laughing and, doing the lines from the show. I just thought, oh my God, I had no idea. So,
please tell me you went in and drank with those guys all night.
What's that?
Please tell me you went in and had drinks with those people all night. Because that's what I would have done. No, you're like, I don't want to be around it.
No, you're like, I heard that show sucks, and you just walk out.
No, there ain't enough booze on 2nd Avenue, for me. So,
Billy, when you take over Bugs Bunny, that's kind of the role that has the most name to it. Is there any kind of fear or trepidation going into taking a role that notable?
Well, yeah, there is. But I was always fearless, there was nothing that I wouldn't try out for or nothing that I wouldn't attempt. Even when I'm doing recording and stuff, I'll go for real off the nose stuff because I want to innovate whenever I can. But if you're replicating a character, you got to be faithful. And I know what you mean about like, oh my God, am I worthy? But the thing is, I auditioned for Ivan Reitman. He was producing Howard Stern's movie Private Parts. So he used to come to the radio station.
That's awesome.
He watched me in action one morning and he said, do you want to audition for Bugs? And I said, sure, I'll audition. And I went out to California and, did the lines. And next thing you know, I found out I had that. And and I got to work with Michael Jordan too, Doc. The closest thing to a religious figure that we have. And Elmer Fudd, shh, be very, very quiet. I'm hunting rabbits. Brain dead hunter, nothing funnier. Oh, come out of there and say your prayers, rabbit.
And are you in the studio with Michael Jordan?
No, I met him.
Damn it.
No, he's a little busy,
Yeah. And maybe he might be a little less busy now, but at that time, I hear he was a pretty big deal.
I did meet him. We had a rap party on the Warner Brothers lot, and they had it all decked out, like an amusement park. And everybody's calling Michael Jordan's name every second, as you would imagine, his crowd around him, Michael. And then his sports agent, Ken Ross, goes, hey, Michael. And all of a sudden he turns because he knows that voice. Yeah. And he goes, this is Billy West. And he reached over to like 6 people, with this giant hand. He shook my hand. It was unbelievable. Billy, Yeah, so
that's so cool.
I felt pretty special.
What a fun project to be able to work on. Like, and coming from what a polar opposite that I have to imagine the experience of working on the Howard Stern show must have been for you. Not that I dislike Howard Stern at all, but I mean, you're talking about a kid's movie versus Howard Stern. That must have been crazy for you.
Well, I mean, I was doing children's cartoons.
That's true. I guess that's true.
While I was still working there. I mean, but I mean, I was slowly on my way out. I kind of outgrew the situation.
Yeah.
And I moved to California on advice of a lot of people that I knew. They said, that's where you want to be. Do you know who called me when I still lived in New York as I was driving home from the radio station. And my wife called me and she said, you know who called here looking for you? I said, who? She said, Phil Hartman.
No way.
I said, B, you know, I know enough guys that can pull an elaborate prank.
Yeah,
like,
and do Phil Hartman. Yeah.
I know enough guys. Yeah. And she said, no, it was him. So I called him when I got home and he said he only called to say hi and that he was a fan. And I was blown away.
That's unbelievable.
He was
That's
so
so
generous
cool.
of spirit. And he said, you know, you ought to move to California. He said, all the work you want to do for a guy like you, you know, and who would know better than him? And so he said, I'll help you get acclimated. He was just so generous of spirit that it was almost like an angelic kind of person that when you meet somebody like that, it's almost, you can't believe it. And we did a commercial together. We worked on an M&M's commercial, ironically. And he played this swaggering, chalky bar, you know, at poolside, trying to impress.
And who did you play?
I played the red M&M.
The red fucking M&M. Are you kidding me right now?
Sort of a candy-coated Leonardo DiCaprio.
That's crazy.
You know,
That's crazy.
Tia Carrera took a bite out of my head. And
That is a badge of honor right there.
yeah, that happened.
So I assume then you agree with the late great Phil Hartman that was the right move to come to LA.
Yeah, absolutely. I really loved that guy, and I loved him long before I met him. I just thought he was so swift, and I knew he was in the ad business because when I saw him in interviews, he talked like a guy that wrote ads, you know, copy for radio and TV. And I knew that world because I was in radio and I used to write and produce commercials. But you know, I mean, podcasting is the closest thing to the kind of radio that I really like. I mean, when I was growing up, I'd listen to radio for the music, but I was fascinated by the voices. It was a sonic world.
Sure.
But there were all these big dumb announcers. That's what I called them when I was a little kid. It was like, you know, this is Johnny Bannon, the human cannon, saying what's in you has got to come out, and that's what rock and roll is all about. Before we eat the slop, we got some friends here, Mr. Roy Orbison, 1959. KRS 101. And I said, who talks like this?
101.
Who the hell talks like this? You know,
that's
what's 12 minutes past the big hour, 12 o'clock. And, you know, and they would use that hamburger helper of words that, you know, I was thinking about something. Yeah.
There's that great scene. I think you mentioned the Howard Stern movie that Reitman did, and there's that great scene where he's sort of languishing in that world, and he's forced to he has to stop his train of thought every like 10 minutes to tell people what time it is, and it's just such a slog and a perfectly shot scene that you can see sort of why he decided to break free both personally and like professionally from that sort of genre. I mean, in a lot of ways, that must have been so cool for you too, because the Howard Stern show was something completely different than radio for its time.
It was like, forget it. If you were a radio station or a show trying to compete with that show,
not going to happen.
I mean, it was like, felt like I was in the cockpit of the Enola Gay, you know?
Yeah. Well, how did you get hooked up with that? How did that whole thing come around?
Well, I worked in Boston in radio, and I wanted to move to New York, and, you know, Howard had heard about me and I had heard about him being an upstart from Washington, DC. And, you know, it just kind of followed suit that our energies would kind of meet up, you know?
That's so fun.
Yeah.
I mean, you must have seen some crazy stuff in that 5 years on that show.
Oh, I did. But I did enough crazy stuff. I mean, it's all on YouTube, or it used to be. It's probably so politically incorrect now. You can't even make a joke. Dudes, when they come for the comedians, we're dead. We're all in trouble.
Not me. I'm too paranoid.
Thankfully, the four of us are very untalented, so they're not going to come for us for a very long time.
Oh, please.
We're fine.
You're having the time of your life. You're having the time of your life.
Billy, we booked you
he's the voice of Slimer in Extreme Ghostbusters.
Do you think I don't know that he's the voice of Slimer in Extreme Ghostbusters, Tim? Is that really what you're gonna say to me right now?
Just that show, but
yeah,
you know what? I get kind of tricked into doing that. They were telling me that Frank Welker didn't want to do it, and I hadn't met Frank yet. And I said, "Really?" And they were like, "Oh yeah, he's done." And so I kind of got sucked into it, and then I felt horrible. I went and apologized to him. He says, you know, but Frank Welker, just for the record, is the Mac Daddy. He really is. I mean, he has control over every chamber in his body, and we all like look up to him like Godfather, you know.
That's awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah,
I mean, he's the only man in the world that can do Megatron and Abu from Aladdin.
Yes. Yes, and he did all the aliens in Mars Attacks.
That's awesome.
Well, yeah, I was saving it for here because again, we're running out of time. If you want to stay with us longer, you're welcome to.
Why are you that busy?
No, for you, we're podcasting nonstop. I booked you for 30 minutes. Your agent was like 30 minutes. That's what he's got.
You were like, because we got to get going. I was, wait a minute. Are you?
I wanted to let you know. I don't think enough people probably have had the same experience I have. But Extreme Ghostbusters, when Slimer gets possessed in the containment unit and bites into Eduardo's tank of oxygen and kills him for a second, I cried. And I was a person in high school. I want you to know that's how good your performance as Extreme Ghostbusters Slimer was. That it brought me to tears.
I guess, yeah, that's a compliment. I mean, I want to evoke a reaction no matter what character I'm doing.
Well, it's just him holding Eduardo, tears, pouring out of Slimer as he wept over this man. They got him out and he was alive, so it's okay. But in the moment, we thought we killed Eduardo. It was tough.
Tears pouring out of 18-year-old Greg Miller. Also,
yeah,
exactly.
Billy, don't take that as too much of a compliment though, because Greg cries if he loses a shoe. He will cry at everything. So.
Oh my God! You must have got upset then in Futurama and Fry's dog.
Oh my God! Are you kidding me, Lucy? I'll bring you in off the bat. I mean, you're like, that's a devastating episode for any human being. I can only imagine Lucy.
Well,
I have to skip it. I can't watch it these days. It's like it's too close. It makes me cry every time.
Yeah, it does. Well, I mean, I read it and I recorded it. And I said, well, this is going to be really sad, but I didn't know how sad it was going to be. And I was, misting up. And I just kept thinking about everybody is affected by this because we all have a bond with animals. Most of us, whether you have a cat or a dog. And I get a cat. And it's like, when I come home, I say to myself, I wish I was half the man that stupid cat thinks I am, and they make us better than we are. I'm using cliches, but I mean,
no, it's
for
true.
loss of a word, I'm just so close to them.
It's wild that episode kind of, Futurama obviously was a very big show, but that episode, people know about that who aren't even fans of Futurama or know what the hell the show is about. It's just kind of surpassed that into that upper echelon of this was a TV moment that a lot of people know. It's really bizarre. It's crazy.
Yeah, but think about it though. That a cartoon can evoke that kind of emotion. I mean, to me, it was a first. I don't think I watched Old Yeller, but that was live action, when I was a little kid and they had to shoot Old Yeller at the end. I was like, oh, Old Yeller. But he had a little puppy and they revealed that before the end of the movie. So
he kind of lived on that way. Yeah.
He lived on that way.
How wild is it that they still show that Old Yeller movie to when I was a kid? That's still a school movie that people show.
That's got to be over with though, right?
In the
I feel like we
mid-90s.
crossed that line. We
don't do that anymore. We don't do anything about dogs.
In certain parts of the country, when they shoot the dog, the audience is cheering.
No, Andy, now they show Marley and Me. That's the new.
Do it.
That's the new Old Yeller. You know what's funny is I've never seen Old Yeller because for the longest time I got Old Yeller and Cujo mixed up, and I was like, that looks terrifying. I'm never watching that.
Young Nick being scared of Old Yeller is great.
Young Nick ate Twinkies and drank a lot of regular soda, and we think that might be why he's shorter than he's supposed to be.
That's what got him. That's what got young Nick. I got you.
Yeah. It was a tough childhood in Riverside in the 80s, guys. Come on.
So, wow. Mr. Billy West, can you hang out a little bit longer, or do you want to be on your way?
Yeah, sure.
Oh,
sure.
great.
Absolutely.
Then while we're here, I'll tell everybody, of course, this is the Kind of Funny podcast each and every week, twice a week. 4 people come together because they're around this table to screw around with each other and have a good time. If you want to be part of that, you can go to patreon.com/kindoffunny, where, of course, you can get each and every episode early. You can get it ad free. You can write in to be part of the show like so many of you did for Billy West. And, of course, you can just hang out and have a good time. You can be watching it live like Corey is, Madeline is, and the Lou are all on patreon.com/kindoffunny. But if you have no bucks to toss our way, it's no big deal. YouTube.com/kindoffunny. Podcast services around the globe each and every week, twice a week. I want to thank, of course, our Patreon producers, Donovan Harkness, Joshua Schroeder, Delaney Twinning, Julian the Gluten-Free Gamer, Steve Powers, and Donovan Harkness again. Of course, today we're brought to you by MeUndies and Canva. And you know what? Why don't I tell you about them right now? This podcast is brought to you by MeUndies. MeUndies finally launched a new collection that's as comfy as cotton, because that's what it is. An underwear company making stretch cotton undies groundbreaking. But really, though, it kind of is. MeUndies launched 2 fabrics before cotton, so why now? They're so happy you asked. MeUndies wants you to find comfort every day, which is why their stretch cotton fabric was designed with yours in mind. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Greg Miller, and as you know, I love MeUndies. I have forever, and I am in the need for some new MeUndies, because of course a long time ago I ordered my first pair, thought they were super soft, and I said, you know what, threw away the rest of my underwear. Been riding out these undies within the other set of undies I ordered, but now they got new undies, so let's talk about them. MeUndies believes comfort is something we're all entitled to. Their new stretch cotton collection offers everyday undies, bralettes, socks, and under tees, and just like MeUndies micromodal fabric, their organic stretch cotton is also sustainable and designed to be the softest thing you've ever worn. Available in sizes XS to 4XL, MeUndies offers countless styles, cuts, and limited edition prints to choose from, so you can be comfortable to your core. Because whatever you wear, whoever you are, and however you got there, comfort is for you. Roger, throw it up. This is an image of Tim at Disneyland for the celebration of Avengers Campus. Don't worry about where he's at, though. Worry about the fact that this man is wearing head-to-toe MeUndies. The shirt, the underwear, the shorts, the socks, all MeUndies. This man is so crazy about MeUndies, you have to understand that we love MeUndies that much, and that's why you should get on this train. MeUndies has a great offer for my listeners. Any first-time purchasers, you get 15% off and free shipping. MeUndies also has their problem-free philosophy. If you're not satisfied with any product for any reason, they'll refund or exchange it. No caveats, no questions. To get 15% off your first order and free shipping, go to MeUndies.com/morning. That's MeUndies.com/morning. Our next sponsor? Why, it's Canva Pro. Canva Pro is the easy-to-use design platform that has everything you need to design like a pro. Whether you're a professional designer or just getting started, Canva Pro can help boost you and your team's productivity and creativity. It's a quick, easy, and affordable way to design whatever you need. No matter what you're creating and sharing, Canva Pro has everything you need in one place, including a collection of over 75 million premium photos, videos, audio, and graphics. Plus, Canva Pro comes with time-saving tools that simplify and speed up the creative process. You can get all this and more with just one Canva Pro subscription. How do we know so much about Canva Pro? Because Tim and Roger have been using it. Tim was doing to do some graphic stuff. We needed to send out some people. Roger using it to edit videos, just like the one you're doing. Roger, why not put a Canva Pro image right here? Wow, look at that. That's from Canva Pro. We've been using it. We love it. It's helpful. And again, these are time-saving tools that are helpful if you're creating anything that would need anything like photos, videos, audios, or graphic. Of course, that's why we love it, why you should be using it, and everybody should too. So design like a pro with Canva Pro. Right now, you can get a free 45-day extended trial when you use my promo code. Just go to canvapro.com/kindafunny to get your free 45-day extended trial. That's canva.me/kindafunny. CanvaPro.me/kindafunny. Roger, toss in a Canva Pro sound right now. Wow, that was fantastic. Wouldn't you like that in your videos? Get at it.
I love that I just have to scroll down Billy West's Wikipedia and be like, oh yeah, there's Family Guy. Yeah, that's on, of course.
Of course he's been on Family Guy. Of course he has.
King of the Hill.
But actually, it's an interesting question from PDXVman, who writes into patreon.com/kindafunny, just like you can to be part of the show. And says, for Billy West, I've gone down the rabbit hole looking up all the characters you've voiced and shocked so many times by the side character or one-off characters from shows you've done. The question I have for you are, what are some existing characters you'd love to voice?
Existing characters?
Yeah, do you think about that? Is that something you look at and you're like, oh man, I'd love to do something? I guess if it's a passing of the torch like Bugs Bunny, or if it's just if you'd like a crack at doing something different with a character.
No, I've never lobbied for any voice or gig. I've never, I appreciate most of the good voices are my friends,
Yeah.
And I don't covet anybody's characters or anything. I just I consider myself really fortunate, and I always, keep a good positive energy. If you go, a lot of people don't know what it's like to wake up in the morning and go walk into a room full of genius level performers. I mean, it ups your game.
I sure don't.
Well, so you don't go in there like, that fucking show off, look at him firing on all 8 cylinders, a showboater. You don't go in with that on your mind. You root for your colleagues and you want them to do great because, it ups your game. It's same tide raises all boats and all that stuff.
Sure.
But I don't know. I don't, I can't see myself doing anybody else's characters, but they had a field day at table reads when I couldn't make it. And so they divvy up my parts, because they had to read them for the table read.
Sure.
Yeah, John DiMaggio was doing the professor and Maurice was doing Zoidberg. And I said, laugh it up, laughing boys.
I'll be back for my check. Don't worry about it.
Are there any stories where I think a lot of stories that fascinate me in Hollywood and voice acting are where a person was supposed to be character A, but something happened, so they ended up voicing character B. Like, was there ever a role that you were supposed to get that something happened and it was taken away from you and maybe you went for another role? Are there any roles that you lost out on and missed out on?
I think there was a couple of instances like that where I didn't get something that I auditioned for, but they had me in mind, and they might have you in mind for another role. Maybe they don't even have it nailed down. So you always come in and you give 1,000%. I was not originally doing Fry for Futurama.
Really?
Yeah. And after the first table read, they decided they were going to hire me as Fry. I auditioned for Zoidberg, the professor. I even auditioned for Bender.
Wow.
But John DiMaggio has the perfect take on it, and to me, he sounds like a punch-drunk fighter,
I can see that.
I want to shout at the champ. You are the champ. Ow. and he had a perfect take on it. He says that that's not what he had in mind. I said, tell me you would imitating like a brain dead fighter. He goes, no, man, I was imitating, who was it? Slim Pickens in Dr. Strangelove.
Oh, right. Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah, he was imitating that, and it wound up to be Bender. But after the first table read, I was doing 3 characters. And then horribly, when Phil Hartman died, they were introducing a character that they wanted him to do called Zap Brannigan. And, they asked me if I would do it. And I had all my knowledge and stuff from all those big dumb announcers that came in handy because it always sounded pompous, carry my balls in a wheelbarrow, coming to the Worcester Centrum.
You got to do the big dumb announcer voice. You got to kind of fill that.
Yeah, let's go to the Love Museum and knock some sensuous boots. Yeah.
What was it like doing that? Like stepping into that role?
What's that?
What was it like doing that? Like, that was something obviously they were writing or at least eyeing Phil for, and then for you to step in for somebody who meant so much to you.
Well, they, they write it, they leave it. They don't know who the characters are, and they do, but they don't know them for real until we do them, and then they go, "Oh, that's who he is." Do you know what I mean? So
Sure.
That's our part to give some life and direction to it. We all work off each other back and forth. It's such a wonderful process,
Now this leads to Brian C's question, who wrote in and said, "What is your favorite voice to portray?"
My favorite voice for.
And what's like when if somebody asked you like, what's your favorite character, or who's the most fun to play? What would you say?
Oh God, I don't know. It's really hard because there's so many beautiful characters that I was entrusted with, to interpret. It's always fun to play bad guys or wily, sneaky guys, because there's this fear. Fry has a lot to him. I mean, he's not just like some, kid, like innocent of everything and not too bright. I mean, he has a lot of levels. And I remember when I was dating, I was always a project for a girl. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna fix this guy.
I think I still am. I think I still a project for my wife.
Get rid of that stupid shirt, and we're gonna take the Q-tips and get the crap out of your ears and get a haircut. And I was a project, so I played Fry like that. Not hapless, but just like a certain neediness that will attract a certain type of woman. And that's the dynamic that they have. She's always like, "Oh, Fry,"
Yeah, she's gonna fix him. She's
Yeah.
gonna when you
And I thought that was a good way to go with him.
well,
What
yeah,
was the
it's you, right?
energy
You were
you
talking
brought
about it.
into? What was the energy you brought into Doug?
Well, they were using the word tweener at the time to describe like 13-year-olds,
Sure, yeah.
Not what I thought it was going to be.
12-year-olds. And he was a painfully shy 11-and-a-half-year-old. And this is my dog, Pork Chop. And, hey, loser, I'm running for office, so vote for this. I channeled a real bully that I had, a real kid that existed. His hair came to a point, his nose came to a point. He had pointy shoes, and he was always like digging into my chest with his index finger, you know. And he was what the Italians call a scutch. And
Nick, translate. What does that mean?
I'm not quite sure. I haven't heard that particular turn of phrase.
It's onomatopoeia, I think. You know, it just means like what it sounds like. A scutch. So, you know, I use that as I channeled that, and I was like Doug when I was 12. I did just nothing but fantasizing. I mean, I was always in a daydream, you know, looking at a girl and imagining how it would go, and it was very sweet. And then I was doing the devil's work on the Stern Show. Then and Stimpy was another. That was like the P5 level of hell, you know.
That's what's so crazy about it today, because everyone like I just feel like there's no way you could be doing kid shows and also be on a show like the Howard Stern Show these days. I just feel like I don't think that like Disney would be okay with that.
I don't know, man. They had Jake Paul on Bizarre Park. So
fair enough. Well, he's a professional boxer now, Tim. So that's
big time professional boxer.
He doesn't do anything else like that. That's good.
With the musicality that was in Doug, like I feel like there's a handful at least of like classic nostalgic songs in it. Was that based on the fact that they were like, oh, Billy has kind of musical talent, let's build something around that?
I don't know if it was specifically, you know, targeted that way. I think that Fred Newman played Skeeter, and he played Mr. Dink, and Fred Newman was the mouth sounds guy. He wrote a book, and he used to be on Garrison Keillor's show all the time, sound effects guy. Mm-hmm. And he is very musical. He wrote lyrics and music, and he collaborated with a guy named Dan Sawyer. But every now and then they'd toss one my way, and they'd, you know, build something out of it. What used to kill me is when I'd go on YouTube and I'd see kids acting out like it was a music video, banging on a trash can. And it just touched me. I mean, I remember being that old and wanting to be part of, you know, stuff, you know, like trying to imitate it or mimic it. Yeah. But, you know, these kids were adorable doing the banging on a trash can. And then there was a rap version. And then I graduated to real clubs with Space Jam soundtrack.
Oh yeah, pump up the jam, baby.
There was a rap that was a club hit, and I'm like this little white guy, you know.
So now, speaking of Space Jam, we're talking about 25th anniversary, obviously, but we're on the verge here of a brand new Space Jam movie. Mm-hmm. How does that make you feel?
Well, I think it's great. It's the logical, progression of all those things. I think they announced it in 2015, so it's about time it came out.
Yeah. Were you shocked that it hadn't come out sooner? Because I feel like we've been hearing about different people kind of going to fill that Michael Jordan role for several years now. And again, when the 2015 thing gets announced, I go, oh, that kind of makes sense. And then time keeps going and time keeps going. It keeps slipping into the future. Time keeps going. And then I think to myself, well, LeBron James will surely be way too old by then. It won't be good enough, but clearly that's false. So like, did you ever think this movie was just never going to happen?
I just, I had heard bits and pieces about it. I didn't know too much because I wasn't in consideration for any of the roles, which is fine by me. I mean, those parts are your parts for one day. I thought like a journeyman, it's like you're a day player. And,
right.
And
sure.
They can let you go just as fast as, you don't have any, you can't lay claim to copywritten characters. You can't run around and say, Yeah, I don't know if you know who I am. I'm the voice of Bugs Bunny. I mean, because it could all be over tomorrow. And, you know, and I knew better. I knew better. I wasn't heartbroken, you know, because there's a couple of my friends are doing the voices, and they're both unbelievable technicians, you know, as far as recreating the characters. So I'm rooting for them, you know.
Is that something, the idea that, you know, you're a journeyman and that you're just, you know, you're on borrowed time with any of these characters, you know, you're doing your version and you're going to move on. Is that something you always understood, or is that something that came to you as you like started doing more and more of this?
I understood it because I always wanted to create characters, and I was good at replicating a lot of franchise characters. So you always run up against the same few impressionists, you know, and that's their thing. So there'd be rivalries. And I used to say, Jesus Christ, you know, the best work was done before we were ever born. You know?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And so, you know, and the studios don't care who's beating each other up in an alley over a voice, you know, they don't care. But, you know, I mean, I was glad they got on with it, and I was glad that it's coming out. I look forward to it.
That's super cool. I haven't seen Space Jam in a long time, so I'm looking forward to that.
Well, it's now in 4K.
I know, that's my thing. I just got a 4K TV for the first time, so I'm going to wait till.
They said, "How do you feel?" You know, it's in 4K. I go, now I can see the makeup on Bugs Bunny's collar. That's the only thing anybody has to say about 4K. You know, the sportscaster, if you look at the collar on his shirt, you could see the makeup from the makeup room. Amazing 4K.
That's
what it's all about. That's what it's all about.
That's really funny. I'm always fascinated to see how the conversions go, and like actually if you can see details and stuff that you couldn't see, especially for a lot of stuff that was done on film.
Well, animation does
interesting to see.
Yeah, animation always has a really good transfer to higher def. That's always one of the nice perks of it. It always ends up looking a lot nicer than usually when you go from a much older movie that maybe wasn't shot on the best of cameras or whatever. Right. Animation always scales really nicely.
Yeah, you're right. Well, I mean, you know, I keep working, even though COVID threw an axe into everything over the past year. I was working out of my house, and a lot of my colleagues were working out of their house. You had to throw together a studio, and none of us are engineers, you know, and so it was trial and error to make something sound decent or studio quality. And luckily I had my brother to help me. He's inclined for all those things. But, you know, I was doing Disenchantment for Matt Groening.
For Netflix,
And, you know, and they're already in like a second season, I believe. But, you know, that's what I was doing over the COVID thing. And then plus I was writing a book. I said, I can't sit here and just basically do nothing for a year. Yeah.
Well, I want to jump off that question because we had a question for the entire panel from Rafferty, who said, what's the most surprising thing you found yourself doing during quarantine? By surprising, I mean something that you chose to do, but would be surprised to learn about. My example is I started playing Madden off and on as sort of an off-season training for the FCF, which surprised many people in my life. So for you, Billy, was writing the book the surprise of quarantine?
Yeah, I'd been thinking about it for a long time, but I had this horrendous childhood, and it's very tough to write about it. But the thing is you know, I made it out. I came out on the other side, and I'm still in one piece, and it's a saga of, you know, trying to understand things, you know, being on the autism spectrum, and you know, not grasping stuff. I mean, I can't tie my shoe the correct way to this very day.
Wow.
It doesn't matter if you showed me 1,000 times, I would still, you know, but then you've got all these storage rooms in your head that are filled with gifts, and luckily you have the keys to them, and you open them up, and bam, you know, that's where all the voices and all the personas and characters come from. Or the ones that are laying in wait, that are just, you know, in the ether until someone gives you an assignment. I really believe that. But yeah, I was writing a book, and it, you know, I did a lot of things. I mean, I came up with Aerosmith and the Jay Giles Band in Boston. You know, we all knew each other. I knew Aerosmith when they were making their first record.
That is the coolest thing you could ever say.
That's a fucking ridiculous drop out of nowhere. All right.
Yeah, I mean, I knew them when they were doing their first record, and
They were just Smith.
Yeah, and years later, I was playing on stage with Steven Tyler.
Wait, how did I come back into that conversation? That's amazing.
I think
Yeah.
Billy's been underselling a bit of his band stuff because he was playing with Aerosmith when they were coming up and doing.
Oh, that's. I mean, that's
Well,
yeah.
we used to. My band used to open up for them.
What was your band?
It was called the Rogues.
Okay.
We were Irish bums, but but anyway, we had the same manager as there, and this guy said to us, his name was Frank Borsa. He goes, he would call me up and he'd go, "Is this the Jeff Beck of Roslindale?" And I go, "Yeah, Frank, what's up?" And he'd go, "You got to see this band I'm booking." And I said, "All right." And I go out to this club in Revere, Massachusetts called Scarborough Fair. And I go with my bass player and we're sitting there and I'm watching these guys banging into each other on stage and they're all out of tune and everything. And I said, these guys are never going to make it. What kind of a name is Aerosmith anyway?
That's hilarious.
Yeah. But I was around.
They figured it out.
And Peter Wolf from the Jay Giles band is a friend of mine. I'm only dropping names because I went on to play with one of my idols, Brian Wilson.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I did like 6 gigs with Brian as the lead guitarist in his band. And
what was that like?
Well, he was my idol, musical idol, him and Jeff Beck. That was a whole other world that I was involved with. And he was really cool. He was real cool. It was surreal. He's another being, an angelic being, He's awkward as a human, as a person, but he's an angelic being.
Yeah. Yeah. His I don't know if you saw the movie they made about him with John Cusack playing him, but that was so good and such an insightful view into that man's soul and his life and some of the bad things that happened to him.
Oh yeah. Well, he and I talked about that one time. That my father was very much like his father. And we bonded on that. And plus he pointed out the fact that we had the same initials.
Oh yeah. That's kind of cool. You're like, cool. Can I have some of the rights to your music?
Can I just stay here?
That's cool. You want to hang out forever?
No, you know what it's like if you get around somebody that you really dig
Vibe
or
with.
you looked up to them and they rocked your world. It's hard to say goodbye. It's hard to say, well, I got to go.
Well, especially a guy like Brian Wilson. It's a very special experience, I'm sure.
Yeah, but I mean, it happened when I met one of my voiceover heroes, a woman named June Foray. I worked with her. She was Rocky the Flying Squirrel. She was Natasha. She was Granny on the Looney Tunes. She was like the voice actress of the world. And I finally met her and got to work with her. And they said, "Billy, this is June Foray." And I'm shaking her hand. And I'm like, I lost my mind. I forgot my place in the world. And I just kept shaking her hand. And I stopped. And she was making this face, and I said, "What are you going to do if I don't let you go?"
Oh God!
What if I just take you? She's only about 4'2". I said, "What if I just take you under my arm and bring you home, and we can live happily ever after and do voices at each other?" Witty,
like,
witty.
I will call the police.
She's like, I think the police would get involved at that point. Yeah, maybe the FBI.
No,
We're not quite sure.
She was so sharp. She was so good. And I don't mean to sound like, just another day in the office. These things are momentous milestones in my life to meet these people. I mean, I've met most of my heroes. Back in the 50s, there was a comedian by the name of Sid Caesar.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the first televised image I ever saw. My mom let me stay up and watch shows. And I saw this guy and he just blew me away. I was never the same, and I wanted to be like that, but I never consciously thought about it because you have to do things like go to school and you have to, you got to grow up and be an adult. Yeah, read all those pain in the ass things. Oh, I was so terrible at reading.
Was there ever a point, Billy, where you thought to yourself, is there a place for me to move on to on-screen acting, or was voice acting kind of always the thing that you knew you were going to do?
When I was younger, I didn't know if I had to stop and wonder if there was a place in this world for me, because there was if you talked about doing voiceovers or wanting to do that back when I was coming up, people would have put you in 4-point restriction. You know, it's like, what? You know, it'd be like trying to explain a desert to a polar bear.
Yeah.
There were no ways you could go and find out about anything. There were no signposts. There were no teachers. There was no nothing. And luckily I found my way to radio, you know, which made only too much sense, because that's where they needed people that talk and do voices and whatnot.
So then the question I have, we talked about the book, but I didn't get the pitch of the book. Is it an autobiography? What's the book actually about?
Yeah, it's an autobiography.
Okay.
It's a bummer in the beginning. You know, people are going to go, who is this book about? Is this about you or your father? But it's about, you know, getting into cartoons and acting and voiceovers and stuff. But there's a whole story attached to it.
Of course.
You know, I mean, I don't want to bum everybody out, but I'm writing the first chapter, and I started typing. I took my first beating in utero, and then I thought, you know what? Do people want to read about some guy whose life is going unbelievably good? No, he just got this show and he got that show and he's got nothing to complain about. He's sitting on a pile of money, blah, 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 blah. No one wants to read about that. Failures are the only things that taught me anything in life. Success doesn't teach you anything.
Sure.
You know, but I mean, I wanted people to know that, you know, I kind of want to dedicate the book to kids that get abused. Because there's so much of it going on, and we for some reason we just can't hunt it down and stop it. But the awareness, you know, I think that I would keep, you know, pushing for that kind of thing.
100%. I think, you know, yes, you're right. I think it's important to talk about how you got to where you are, because obviously that journey is what made you and led to these opportunities. And I think it is such an important story to get out there for people who are in abusive relationships, that are being abused. And especially what you're talking about, right? Where it's happening at home and you're a kid. Like, no one deserves that. But when you are coming home behind closed doors, the people who are supposed to, you know, from a genetic level, take care of you and protect you, right? Like, how do you wrestle with that? That's got to be incredibly tough.
I went into some detail about how I felt every day, because I was getting punished every day.
Yeah.
You know, for shit that I didn't do. And I couldn't understand anything. My mind was, I was cracking to pieces as a human being. And I had just started out being a human being. But my dad would just, you know, he'd be a different guy all of a sudden, and everything was okay. And then this monster would appear again. And, you know, you develop all kinds of coping mechanisms, and, you know, it's the real world. It's lots of people have to go through that. And hopefully, you know, my message is that there is light at the end of the tunnel. You can wind up with a lot of stuff wrong with you because of junk like that.
Sure.
You know, depression, levels of mania, you know, psychosis, you name it. But if you're afraid and quivering inside because of what happened to you when you were little, nobody has to live like that. This is 2021. Nobody has to live like that, or should. And I want people to know that there's light at the end of the tunnel. I spent my whole life in chronic low-level depression. I didn't even know it. I just thought that everybody was like that, and that I was, you know, maybe I'm just a pussy and I can't deal with life on life's terms like all these other people. But
everything that's been beaten into you at that point, right? Of like how a man should act and what you should be, and yada, yada, yada.
But you're judging your insides to everybody's outsides. And,
yep.
You don't know. You think that everyone, you know, because I didn't feel like I was terminally unique. I did when I was drinking and drugging. I thought, you know, I can handle this. This makes me bigger, you know, than I am, and more verbose or whatever I was looking for. And then I stopped all that stuff. But yeah, there is light at the end of the tunnel. My heart goes out to anybody who's sitting there with their head in their hands wondering, I don't think there's a place for me. You know, and I know there's a lot of people that have that moment, even if they don't suffer from it. It's a very hairy, scary world, you know, curveballs flying from every direction. And it's hard to maintain balance at the high speed that we have to live at.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, you know, again, like when we talk about mental health, when you talk about abuse, when you talk about anything else going on that's negative, like I think one of the ways to make that stuff lose so much power is by addressing it. So like the fact that you're writing about it's extremely powerful, and I'm glad you fought the urge or the maybe initial thought to be like, I'm Fry. Everything's great. Like, no, people need to know that.
Nobody wants to read about how great somebody else's wonderful life is going. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think people obviously want both. I mean, I personally would like, I think the best biographies, the best sort of nonfictions are when you get both sides of it, right? I mean, because I think you do there are a lot of people out there that are your fans that would want to celebrate some of those successes with you because, they feel like to a degree they're a part of it. But I do think it's brave and bold of you to want to show that side of your life, because I do think there are a lot of people out there that suffer from domestic abuse or came up in an abusive environment.
Way more than you think.
Yeah, talking about it makes it a little bit, if nothing else, gives people perspective potentially on their own situation, and I think that's.
Well, I mean, but if somebody that you sort of have a feeling for, like the kind of people that would write you a fan letter and they get it and they go, I hear you talking about this and that. And it's like, I'm going through that same thing right now. And, and you get enough letters like that, you realize that this is, it's like an epidemic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
These dysfunctional situations where some kid gets chosen to be the whipping boy, especially by like women that don't have a husband or they got divorced or whatever, and they pick the worst boyfriend in the world who abuses the child.
Yeah, that's terrible.
That is like becoming proverb at this point.
Yeah.
And
I think you mentioning that you are comparing your inside to other people's outsides, and I mean, little do you know that there's tons of people that see you on the outside and say, oh, that's Fry. That guy's got a great life. And I'm sad inside. Mm-hmm. Why am I feeling this way? I mean, there's tons of situations where people feel like shit and maybe didn't even go through a traumatic past. And just for some reason, why do I feel like garbage every day? I can't understand why I woke up on the wrong side of the bed today and I just want to stay in it all day. But tomorrow you'll be totally different. And I just think it's important for people to see that, you are Billy West. You've had this amazingly long career and you too have struggled. And that's important to kind of relate to anybody out there who's gone through issues.
Well, it's not just all that, I mean, there's a through line of that kind of thing, what I fought back against, but I've had the most amazing life, I mean, I've had stuff happen to me. Like, I was at Phil Spector's house one night.
Whoa.
And
that's all right. Everybody's hair on the back of their neck stands up like, what was that? What's going on there?
Yeah, he pulled a gun on me.
Shit.
That's how it goes when you go to Phil Spector's
that was
house.
Yeah, I saw about half of the movie they made about him with Al Pacino as Phil Spector. I was like, this guy.
Yeah,
had some
demons.
demons.
I was at his house, and I mean, I write about those kind of things in the book. There's just like a million stories that are like that, and somebody will say, well, I thought I had heard it all, and you did what?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When's the book coming out?
I don't know. I got to read it a few more times to find out if people will come and kill me for saying certain things.
Fair enough.
That means
the censorship doesn't come from publishers or the government. It comes from your fellow human beings.
Yeah.
That just don't want to hear you talking about something, so they could, that now they can reach out and try to mess with you.
Well, I'm sure Phil Spector wants to stop as many stories about him pulling guns on people as possible. So yeah,
he's been doing that. Like he had been doing that for 60 years. He kidnapped. He held John Lennon hostage. He held me and a friend of mine hostage with some of the greatest songwriters of the century. We were in the same room. Guy that wrote The Locomotion is sitting on the couch. And Barry Mann, Cynthia Wilde, Jerry Goffin, Jack Nietzsche. These were the greatest songwriters of the 20th century, sitting on a couch listening to Phil, drunk, quacking.
Yeah.
What a life. Holy shit.
I was going to say, Billy West, you've lived a life, sir. You've lived a life.
But there was a lot to write about. The more I wrote, the more I had popping out of me. So,
I can imagine. Yeah, you get to that point where you start getting towards the more sensitive stuff, like Phil Spector pulling a gun on you, possibly. I don't know if that's going to be in the book, but you get to that and you start uncovering more and more moments and go, holy shit, a lot of stuff happened to me in your 20s to 30s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I saw a lot and I did a lot. I even stupidly went to another country to have a drug vacation once with 5 other chuckleheads. We were sitting around doing coke in the 80s, and it was anemic. I said, this stuff is junk. It's like the Peruvian army marched through it. It's just,
it's been stepped on a couple times. Yeah.
Yeah. So somebody said, why don't we go where they make the stuff?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, now you've said something.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
We got on a plane and went down to Peru.
Jesus God.
We booked a hotel and we were just going to have ourselves a little picnic, $11 a gram, 98% pure. Sure, there's where you want to die.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that
go?
turned out to be such a nightmare. It was like a week. The week was like one long day.
Yeah.
And when you're in that shape, loaded in that particular fashion, everything, your vision, everything looks like a Super 8, from Woodstock with the bleeding sun colors and horrible. But you live and I think back and I go, so damn lucky I didn't get shot to death because we're messing around.
And were you working professionally at this time? Did you have any other?
Radio.
Got it.
I was
Okay.
in radio, and then I took off with these other guys that we thought we were going to go down there and take over Lima or something. I don't know. But
this is why I stay away from. That's why I've always stayed away from cocaine. It makes you way too bold. Like
God,
take over an entire country.
I wish. Booze. I was always a mess, and then with cocaine, you could pull out of a nosedive, but then you'd go back worse.
It's so funny. It's one of those.
You'd be drinking NyQuil, at the end of the night, and wood alcohol, trying to come down.
Wood alcohol?
I did once.
What is that?
Wood grain alcohol can make you blind.
Is it like just super high alcohol concentration? Or
there's isopropyl
level.
And there's wood grain.
Jesus,
Greg,
like
you
rubbing alcohol.
Greg, you stepped away for a second.
I've learned from everybody else who's stepped away at the podcast and comes back. I'm like, we're on Earth right now. We'll be on Mars when I get back. And now we're talking about drinking wood grain alcohol.
Here's how it feels. It feels like our cool Uncle Billy is telling us some shit.
Yeah, no, it definitely feels that way this episode.
No, I mean, at least I mixed it with ginger ale.
Yeah, you cut it a little bit. That's smart.
Yeah, if you cut it down.
No, but I mean, it's such a horrifying situation because you're flying so high and you come down so hard, and you need to be like anesthetized to come down.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, and then you start out doing the same damn thing the next day.
What was the? You mentioned that you just kind of ended it. You stopped doing the drug abuse and stuff. When did that? What caused that? What sort of?
What caused that was the radio station was getting totally fed up with my antics, and I remember that I had a car accident and I was supposed to go to court and I never showed up for court. So a year later, I get I'm out one night and I'm driving around in my car and I get stopped and the cops go, you have a warrant for your arrest, and they took me right to jail. I was in Charleston jail. A 200-year-old pissy, smelly Bastille in the ass end of Boston. And I spent a week there, and that was an eye opener. It's just like, how did I, what have I done to make it all add up to this? And you do a lot of soul searching. So right from there, I went to a hospital called McLean's, and they had a 30-day inpatient treatment.
Yeah.
And I came out and I was a quick study. I got it. I really understood what the deal was. And so to this day I'm lucky. I never had a relapse or
wow. That's really lucky. That's a lot of good work that you put into that. That must have been hard.
I was a dead man walking, you know. It's like the suicide comes in many flavors, you know. It's you can take a gun or a knife, or you can just drink, and it's slow suicide, slow motion.
How many years had it been up until that point that you've kind of hit that rock bottom? I need to change this.
Oh, almost 2 decades.
Wow.
Because it started when I was playing in bands. You know, you're 19 years old, and you're just old enough to drink, and you walk up like a sod buster in an old Western saloon. You know, what do you got that's easy on the stomach? You know, like a real man. How about a slow gin fizz? Sounds good. Hook me up.
Give me 9.
Yeah, and I had the slow gin fizz, and I said, this tastes like a punch at the state fair, you know. And I wanted another one, and I wanted another one after that. And you know, that was the beginning of my affair with Madame Bottle, the muse. Yeah.
It's so interesting.
The drug of Irish poets.
You see that you talk about, you know, the cycle of abuse, but obviously, and how that kind of spirals into substance abuse. And then, but it's so interesting. Every documentary or every piece of content I see about the subject. I just watched, Greg, I watched that documentary again about National Lampoons. They were talking about Doug Kenny, who was one of the founding members. And he had a very, you know, similar experience where he grew up in not a very nice household, and he never felt sort of, you know, he had some depression issues. And then of course, when he got money, everyone always said, like, you know, his friends would be like, I don't understand you. If I had what you have, I would be so happy and so fulfilled. But he just was depressed, and the substance abuse didn't help. And he ended up, some say he slipped and some people say he jumped, but he killed himself, or he ended up dying. We're not quite sure which, but it's super sad that you see that. So it's so amazing that you were able to sort of claw your way back from that and find sobriety and find purpose and do all this great work.
I'm very grateful, very lucky, very grateful for, you know, having made it through so many situations, and also extremely grateful for the good fortune that I've had. I'm willing to work real hard. You know, your mouth to God's ear. All I ever wanted to do was work. And it's like, you know, I kind of got my wish. That's all it was about to me, was working.
Yeah. I think that's obviously the most important thing. Once you can focus on that, when you can find a way to get away from, or get out of your own way, as they say, which I think a lot of drugs and alcohol do for you, then yeah, you can get some amazing stuff, which you've proven, which is cool.
Yeah. And if I want to fool around, I mean, there's other things instead of drugs, like, you know, you save your money and go to Milan and eat your way from one end of town to the other.
That's what I would do. So that's my drug of choice
way.
right
Let's
there.
go.
Yeah.
Figure out your new vice. Yeah, exactly.
With a beautiful Italian girl, you know, to me, that's living.
Oh, see, that's a heart attack waiting to happen right there. You're take out the Italian girl. I don't need that stress, but I'll take the pasta.
I'll tell you a story. You know, In a World, that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The trailer guy.
Mm-hmm.
What was his name? I forget now.
I forget.
There was a few of them, but yeah, that guy, the guy that was like the leader of it was
Andy Hack the Planet. Find
Where
out.
is this story gonna go though?
Don LaFontaine. Don LaFontaine. Yeah.
Yeah, I crossed paths with him once, and he said, "How you doing? What's going on? What's life going?" You know, I said, I was over in Europe and I met this young girl, and I said she was just, it was euphoric. It was just like, you know, kind of girl, you kiss her lips and you feel like you've done everything, and everything was new. It was like spring.
Sure.
But meanwhile, I'm in my 60s, you know. And he said to me, "She'll tell you if you're too old."
Did you?
A life. Uncle Billy's lived a life, Nick.
Uncle Billy has lived that life. That reminds
me. She'll tell you if you're too old. Don't worry about it.
Oh, brutal. God bless it.
Brutal
out here.
Billy West, you came to talk about Space Jam. I feel like we've learned so much more. Thank you for being so open and honest and hanging out.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I really enjoyed it. I got a kick out of this.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't know, this has been the Kind of Funny podcast. Each and every week, 4, sometimes 5 best friends gather on this table, coming to bullshit with each other about whatever it is they want to bullshit about. If you like that, you can head over to patreon.com/kindafunny, where of course you can get each and every episode early. You could be watching live as we record it. You could write in to be part of the show. You could get it ad-free. You could get it with the exclusive post show we're about to do. Of course, that's all on patreon.com/kindafunny. However, if you have no bucks to toss our way, it's no big deal. you can go to youtube.com/kindafunny. Podcast services around the globe twice a week to get brand spanking new episodes. Billy, I would ask you, what do you want to plug before you get out of here? But I feel like your IMDb page, Space Jam, July 6th, you can get the 4K version of that, 25th anniversary. There's a commentary track with you on it. And then we got to wait for you to get this book approved. But this book is going to be a hell of a read whenever it comes.
It's going to be a banger.
Oh, yeah. Sure. Yeah. I'm going to have like cartoon pictures depicting all these horrific things, but they're going to look like cartoon drawings,
Perfect.
I don't know if I want to see any of those. It scares me already.
Sure you do. I
all of them.
I got to take the sting out of some of that junk.
Understandable. Yeah, that's important. Again, we were talking about him, right? And writing about it and exercising those demons, right? It must help. It must get it off.
Yeah. Yeah. So in the words of my favorite announcer, well, my least favorite announcer, this conclude, that is all.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a post show to do on patreon.com/kindafunny. But until next time, it's been our pleasure to serve you.